The Egyptian god Ra turns out to be an alien who enslaves humanity upon his return to Earth. In the distant past, a massive spaceship appears over a small settlement in the North African desert at night. It descends, emitting a bright beam of light. As all the villagers scatter, one boy is mesmerized by the sight and is engulfed by the light. We then shift to 1928. In Giza, archaeologists discover a giant stone statue with a peculiar ring-shaped artifact underneath. Professor Langford and his daughter Catherine arrive in Egypt to see this mysterious find for themselves. In 1994, an older Catherine Langford attends a lecture by a young Egyptologist, Daniel Jackson. He is trying to convince his senior colleagues that the Pyramid of Khufu, the Great Sphinx, and Egyptian writing originated much earlier than commonly believed. However, the scholars dismiss his unconventional theory and leave before he finishes. As Daniel leaves the hotel, he is approached by Lieutenant Kowalski. Kowalski tells him that someone wants to speak with him and takes him to a car where Catherine is waiting. Catherine offers him a job translating ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Daniel refuses and is about to leave the car, but Catherine reminds him that he has been evicted from his apartment. His scholarship has ended, and all his belongings fit into 2 bags. Catherine gives Daniel a chance to prove his theories and hands him a plan for a certain trip. After some thought, Daniel agrees to the mysterious offer. Meanwhile, in the suburbs, military personnel arrive at the home of Colonel Jack O'Neill. His wife answers the door and warns them that he doesn't want to see anyone. The grieving colonel spends his time in his son's room. His son accidentally shot himself with Jack's gun, and O'Neill is still unable to cope with the loss. The soldiers cautiously knock on his door and inform the colonel that General West has sent them to him.
Sir, we're here to inform you that you've been reactivated.
We then move to a nuclear facility at Creek Mountain, Colorado, where Daniel arrives. He is led into a hall where the unusual stone artifact has been under continuous study since the 1920s. Catherine and other scientists brief him on the situation and ask for his help in deciphering the hieroglyphs etched on stone tablets. Daniel examines the ancient artifact in amusement and then notices a translation of symbols on a board that one of the scientists has been working on. He points out that the translation is incorrect and begins correcting the mistakes. Eventually, Daniel translates the phrase, "A million years into the sky is Ra, sun god, sealed and buried for all time in his Stargate." After finishing the translation, Daniel asks why the military is interested in Egyptian tablets that are about 5,000 years old. Colonel O'Neill suddenly interrupts, asserting that his report states the artifact is 10,000 years old. Daniel is puzzled, as Egyptian culture did not exist at that time. He asks if there was a tomb beneath the stone statue, but the scientist replies that there was something even more intriguing. At this point, Colonel O'Neill cuts off their conversation, stating that the matter is classified and that civilians will only be given information with his permission.
Catherine, what's going on here?
Not sure.
2 weeks pass. Daniel continues to toil over the ancient tablets, struggling to decipher some of the symbols. Taking a break for coffee, he notices a guard holding a newspaper with an article about the constellation Orion. Suddenly inspired, Daniel grabs the newspaper and rushes back to his desk. He circles the constellation with a marker and compares it to a symbol on the stone. The next day, Daniel meets with the scientists and military personnel. General West is skeptical, doubting that Daniel could decipher in 14 days what other experts couldn't solve in 2 years. Despite this, Daniel presents his theory that the symbols, previously thought to be words, are actually constellations. He explains that they are arranged in a specific order, with 7 points indicating a path to a destination. Daniel further explains that to determine a direction in 3-dimensional space, 6 points are needed to pinpoint an exact location, while the 7th point serves as a reference for setting the course. He shows what the 7th point looks like on the map, but one of the scientists states that this symbol is not on the device. Confused, Daniel asks what device he is referring to. After an awkward silence in the room, Colonel O'Neill permits Daniel to see the ring made of alien minerals that was found beneath the stone slabs.
What is that?
It's your Stargate.
Daniel is taken to the control room, where the scientists activate the gate covered in numerous ancient symbols. Several interlocking rings begin to rotate, and a screen displays all the symbols in close-up. Suddenly, Daniel asks to pause the video on one of them and draws additional symbols from the stone tablets directly onto the screen. He creates an image of 2 figures praying beside a pyramid with the sun shining above it. This matches the 7th point, which the scientists had been unable to identify. Since the 7th point is the starting location, the pyramid with the circle must represent Earth. The scientists immediately start inputting all 7 symbols into the computer. Suddenly, a red alert is triggered, prompting the entire staff to evacuate the room containing the ring. As the control room begins to shake, the scientists persist and finally input the last symbol into the computer. This activates the Stargate, and a massive bright vortex emerges, quickly transforming into a wormhole. The military sends a probe through the gate, and it disappears from view while continuing to transmit signals. Analyzing the received data, the scientists determine that the probe has been transported to a location in the Kalium galaxy.
That's right, Jackson. It's on the other side of the known universe.
Suddenly, the signal from the probe is lost, and the gate shuts down. The military and scientists study the images captured by the probe and conclude that the gate is a means of traveling between worlds. Additionally, the atmosphere on this unfamiliar planet matches that of Earth. Daniel then notices that the other gates have different symbols, which, when deciphered, can lead back to Earth. General West, however, wants to halt the research since they cannot gather more information. At this point, Daniel offers to travel to the other world and conduct the research himself. After exchanging glances, West and O'Neill approve Daniel's participation in the mission. They then head to a secret room to examine mysterious fossils that were also excavated from under the stone slabs in 1928. Meanwhile, Daniel prepares for the journey, and Catherine gives him a raw necklace she found at the same site as the Stargate. She claims it has always brought her luck and hopes it will do the same for Daniel. The team of military personnel, led by O'Neill and Daniel, are finally ready to pass through the portal. First, they send the necessary equipment through the gate, which immediately disappears from view. Then, all team members step through the gate, teleporting across the universe in a matter of seconds. As the team come to their senses, they light signal flares and survey the dark room, noticing a similar gate. They then exit the room, walk through long corridors, and eventually realize they are in a desert, with a replica of the Pyramid of Khufu situated in the middle. Using their equipment, the military begins gathering necessary data. Colonel O'Neill instructs Daniel to decipher the symbols on the gate so they can return through the wormhole in an hour. However, Daniel explains that, besides deciphering the symbols, he needs to determine their order. On Earth, they discovered this from stone tablets, but here there is nothing similar, so they need to find it. Kowalski angrily confronts Daniel, accusing him of not warning them about this need for a search, leaving them uncertain about when they can return home. O'Neill intervenes, ordering Kowalski to set up camp nearby, and then returns to the pyramid to plan a nuclear bomb in case of a serious threat. Kowalski soon interrupts him, reporting that the camp is set up. Meanwhile, Daniel settles in one of the tents, but the military is hostile towards him, and one of them throws his suitcase down a sand dune. Daniel begins gathering his belongings and then stops to rest and have a snack. Suddenly, he notices tracks left by an unknown animal and decides to follow them. He soon finds a mysterious pack animal eating desert vegetation. Daniel cautiously approaches it, tries to pet it, and then offers it a chocolate bar. Noticing Daniel's absence, the military follows his tracks and soon sees him near the animal, warning him to stay away from it. But Daniel shows them the harness and assures them the animal is domesticated, then pats it on the neck. This startles the animal, causing it to run. Daniel falls, and his foot gets tangled in the rope. The soldiers try to help Daniel, but the animal runs too fast. Eventually, it stops and licks Daniel's face, bringing him back to consciousness. The soldiers catch up and free Daniel. Suddenly, the team hears strange sounds and, upon reaching the top of a dune, they discover a desert mine where hundreds of locals are laboring to extract valuable minerals. A young man named Skara notices the strangers and alerts the others. O'Neill suggests Daniel use his knowledge of ancient languages to try to communicate with the natives. Daniel approaches the crowd, and one man spots the raw necklace around his neck. He shouts something to the others, and suddenly, all the natives fall to their knees before him. Confused by the locals' behavior, O'Neill approaches Skara and shakes his hand to show they come in peace, but Skara shouts something and runs away. One of the soldiers scans the minerals the locals are mining and discovers they are made of the same material as the Stargate. Meanwhile, Skara returns with the tribe's chief, Kasuf. The chief says something to the visitors and bows, but Daniel can't understand him. Kasuf then calls his daughter Shorai and other women, who offer drinks to the guests. The team bows in gratitude, and Daniel offers Kasuf a chocolate bar. Kasuf cautiously takes a bite and finds the treat delicious.
Bunny? Bunny where?
Kasuf gestures for the team to follow him. Initially, the soldiers are hesitant, but Daniel assures them that this way they will find the necessary information to return home. O'Neill agrees but first contacts the soldiers remaining at the camp, warning them that they will be delayed. Kasuf leads the guests to their stone city, and they make a long journey across the desert with hundreds of natives. As they approach their destination, Daniel starts sneezing from the dust, which amuses the locals. In the city, the team is again greeted with respectful bows, and they are shown a metal disc with the Eye of Ra symbol. Daniel explains to the soldiers that Ra is the Egyptian sun god, and it seems the locals believe Ra sent them. Suddenly, one of the townspeople sounds an alarm, and everyone begins to panic and scatter. At the same time, the soldiers receive a call from the camp warning of an approaching sandstorm. They try to inform O'Neill and the others that they will need to return to the pyramid, but due to interference, they can't hear each other. The team soon notices the locals closing all the gates and mistakenly thinks they are being captured. The soldiers start shooting and even take 2 people hostage. Skara then offers to take O'Neill with him. The colonel agrees, and Skara leads him up to show the approaching storm. Realizing the situation, O'Neill informs his men that the locals are not dangerous and says they will have to wait out the storm there. In the evening, the natives hold a feast and offer the guests a variety of dishes. Daniel decides to try the unusual meat to avoid offending the townspeople. The soldiers watch his reaction, but Daniel assures them that it tastes good and is very similar to chicken. O'Neill takes another look at the Eye of Ra symbol. He theorizes that if the locals recognize one Egyptian symbol, they might know others and could help with deciphering them. Daniel approaches Kasuf and begins drawing symbols in the sand. However, Kasuf immediately erases them with his foot and starts shouting to the others. The townspeople quickly wrap Daniel in a blanket and lead him away. The locals bring Daniel to another room, where they brush his hair, wash him, and anoint him with fragrant oils before leaving. Confused, Daniel wonders what's happening until Shorai enters the room and starts undressing. Stunned, Daniel stops her and tells her she doesn't need to do that, though she doesn't understand him. He leads her out of the room, but Kasuf looks at them fearfully, thinking Shorai displeased Daniel. To avoid offending Kasuf, Daniel takes Shorai back to the room. Instead of making love, he draws a pyramid in the sand, trying to explain they arrived through it. Initially frightened, Shorai turns away from the drawing but then decides to add a circle above the pyramid. Daniel realizes she has seen this symbol before and knows about Earth. Shorai uses gestures to confirm his guess and offers to take him somewhere. Shorai leads Daniel to a cave with many hieroglyphs on the walls. He starts reading them aloud in ancient Egyptian, and Shorai corrects his pronunciation, allowing them to communicate in a language they both understand. Meanwhile, the soldiers in the pyramid unsuccessfully try to contact Kowalski. Suddenly, the pyramid begins to shake, and a bright beam of light from the same spaceship seen at the beginning of the film descends onto it. The ship slowly descends onto the pyramid, enveloping it. The soldiers spread out and begin exploring the corridors. Unexpectedly, unknown creatures emerge from the darkness and attack them. One soldier manages to glimpse their assailant, a guard with the face of the god Anubis and glowing blue eyes. Several guards soon carry the soldiers into a room with a sarcophagus, and suddenly, meanwhile, in the Stone City, Skara notices O'Neill smoking and is fascinated by his lighter. The colonel shows him how it works and then gives it to the young man. Curious, Skara takes a cigarette and tries to smoke, but he coughs hard after the first puff and throws it away. Next, Skara tries to grab the colonel's weapon, but O'Neill quickly pulls it out of his hands, causing Skara to run away in fear. Soon after, O'Neill attempts to contact the soldiers left in the pyramid but gets no response. This time, though, it's not due to interference, the soldiers just aren't answering. Skara returns to his friends and shows them the gift from O'Neill. O'Neill notices that Daniel has been missing for a while and decides to ask Skara and his friends about him. He shows them Daniel's vest and tries to describe Daniel's appearance with gestures, but the confused boys simply mimic his movements. Then O'Neill sneezes and imitates the sounds Daniel made when he tried their food, and Skara finally understands what O'Neill wants. Skara takes Daniel's vest and offers it to his animal to sniff so it can track him by scent. The creature immediately runs out of the stable, and the group follows. They soon find Daniel and Shorai in a cave. O'Neill is surprised that Daniel can converse with Shorai, considering he didn't seem to understand their language before. Daniel explains that he had to learn the proper pronunciation, as no one in modern times could teach it. Daniel also shares with O'Neill everything he's learned about the history of this planet. It turns out that a member of another race, Ra, was trying to save his kind from extinction by traveling across galaxies in search of the secret to eternal life. One day, around 8000 BC, Ra discovered Earth, inhabited by a primitive race, humans. He realized that a human body could give him new life and chose a boy who approached the light. Ra took over the boy's body and made himself ruler. Using the Stargate, he transported many humans to this planet to work in mines extracting a mineral essential to his eternal life. However, an uprising eventually occurred on Earth, and the Stargate was buried. Fearing another rebellion on this planet, Ra banned reading and writing to prevent people from remembering the truth. Suddenly, Daniel is interrupted by Kowalski, who invites him to see an intriguing find, a round stone with symbols similar to the ones they found on Earth. Daniel excitedly examines the stone, guessing that the locals hid it here, hoping the Earth Gate would someday reopen. But he soon discovers that the seventh symbol is worn away, making it impossible to return. Disappointed, O'Neill announces that they are heading back to the pyramid. The team sets out, with Skara and his friends secretly following them. When they reach the pyramid and find a spaceship instead, the team becomes anxious. Grabbing their weapons, they enter but do not find their colleagues. Soon, a guard with a staff notices them and starts shooting at the soldiers. O'Neill and Daniel rush to the room with the atomic bomb, only to find it missing. Suddenly, an opening in the ceiling appears, and 3 guards descend in a beam of light, teleporting O'Neill and Daniel to a vast hall. At that moment, the ship changes its shape, allowing sunlight to flood the room. Ra, surrounded by his entourage, approaches them and displays the bomb, declaring that he won't let them destroy his world. As Ra and his guards remove their masks to reveal their human appearances, O'Neill seizes the opportunity to grab a weapon from one of the guards. However, the Egyptians prove stronger. Daniel is wounded in the abdomen, and O'Neill is beaten with a staff. Ra orders his guards to stop, then approaches Daniel to examine his necklace. O'Neill is thrown into a water pit with the other soldiers, while Daniel is taken away. Meanwhile, Skara and his friends are looking at the Earthlings' belongings when they suddenly see 2 fighters flying out of the pyramid. The fighters head toward the stone city and begin a ruthless bombardment. Skara and his friends return to their home city to find widespread destruction and many injured people. Shorai tells Skara that Ra is punishing them for helping the strangers. She asks about Daniel, but Skara doesn't respond. Some time later, Daniel wakes up in a sarcophagus and discovers that his wound is gone. He climbs out of the sarcophagus and soon finds Ra's quarters. Daniel asks Ra if he was alive after the injury, and Ra explains that he chose the human race because human bodies are easy to heal. Ra then says they shouldn't have opened the gate, as he now plans to send the bomb back to Earth, augmented with minerals that will exponentially increase its destructive power. Ra also takes Daniel's necklace and orders him to kill all his companions to ensure that none of his slaves doubt his authority. If Daniel refuses, Ra threatens to kill him and everyone who saw him. Soon, Skara and his friends find Shorai in a cave and inform her that Ra has ordered everyone to gather for an execution. The girl declares that they cannot allow this and shares the story of their people, as told to her by Daniel. A little later, the townspeople gather in the square. The guards hand Daniel a staff and order him to execute the team. But then he notices Skara in the crowd, using the lighter to reflect light and get Daniel's attention. Skara shows that they have the soldiers' weapons, and Daniel, understanding their plan, opens fire on the guards. A shootout ensues, but the entire team, except for one soldier, manages to escape. Despite another sandstorm, the team and the rebels reach a safe cave. Suddenly, O'Neill demands the return of their weapons and wants Skara and his friends to go back. However, Kowalski points out that they have nowhere else to go and could help in the fight. Enraged, O'Neill asks what they are fighting for, and Daniel finally suggests telling everyone about the bomb. O'Neill admits that he was ordered to send the team back at the first sign of danger and blow up the Stargate, but things didn't go as planned, and now the bomb could destroy the entire Earth. Meanwhile, Ra is furious that the guards have let the strangers and rebels escape. He puts on a special device and slowly kills one of the guards with it. Soon, Daniel learns that all the townspeople consider him and Shorai to be husband and wife. Surprised, he asks her about it, and she says she never told anyone that nothing happened between them. To protect Shorai, he kisses her in front of everyone. The next day, Daniel sees Skara drawing the day of their victory on a rock. He realizes that the symbol of their planet is a pyramid and 3 moons, which means this is the 7th point they were missing. The group then goes to the mines, where they prove to Kasuf and the other inhabitants that those they believe to be gods are just ordinary people in masks. Shocked, the inhabitants decide to overthrow their rulers. The team and the rebels head to Ra's ship disguised as unsuspecting slaves, while Ra orders his minions to send the bomb to Earth through the Stargate as soon as possible. Inside the pyramid, they open fire on the guards. An intense shootout begins, and several fighters fly out of the ship again, attacking the enraged townspeople at the pyramid's entrance. Meanwhile, O'Neill reaches the bomb and activates it, intending to stay behind and blow up the gate after everyone returns to Earth. Daniel and Shorai try to convince him not to do this, and suddenly a guard appears and shoots Shorai. Daniel kneels over her body, but then an opening appears in the ceiling. He picks her up and heads to the sarcophagus, which immediately revives Shorai. With 3 minutes left until the explosion, O'Neill continues to fight the guard, and Ra finds Daniel and Shorai, attempting to kill the scientist with his glove. O'Neill manages to defeat the guard and uses the stone on the guard's hand to activate the ceiling portal, lowering rings that decapitate the guard. Thanks to the open passage, Ra is distracted, and Daniel grabs the necklace from him and returns with Shorai to the room with the gate. With less than 2 minutes left on the timer, O'Neill tries to disarm the bomb, but it turns out that Ra has modified it, making it impossible to deactivate. Meanwhile, outside, the townspeople realize they are losing, but then Kasuf arrives with an enraged crowd. Seeing that his forces are insufficient, Ra raises his ship high above the planet to save himself. But then Daniel reactivates the ceiling portal, and he and O'Neill send the bomb straight to Ra's ship. Seeing the bright flash in the sky, all the inhabitants rejoice in their victory and long-awaited freedom, thanking O'Neill for their salvation. The soldiers prepare to return home, But Daniel decides to stay with Shore Eye on her planet. The scientist bids farewell to O'Neill and asks him to return Catherine's medallion, which indeed brought him luck. What would you do if you were left on a foreign planet? Share your ideas in the comments below, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.